Commander Jace Reynolds leaned against the viewport of Orion Station, watching the endless dance of starships against the backdrop of swirling nebulae. His battle-scarred armor, a hulking exoskeleton of carbon-titanium alloy, made other travelers give him a wide berth. The armor's faceplate remained retracted, revealing his weathered features, steel-gray eyes, and the kind of rugged jawline that spoke of battles fought and survived. 24 hours, he muttered, checking his wrist display. 24 more hours until his transport arrived to take him back to Earth after 5 grueling years fighting the Tauran insurgency on the frontier. 5 years of blood, sweat, and watching good soldiers die under his command. All he wanted now was a quiet corner, a stiff drink, and to be left the hell alone. Orion Station, known throughout settled space as the crossroads of 100 worlds, buzzed with frenetic activity. Merchants hawked exotic wares, diplomats conducted hushed negotiations, and beings from across the galaxy mingled in a cacophony of languages and customs. Jace had chosen this particular station for its anonymity, just another war-weary soldier in the crowd. What he didn't know was that he was being watched. From across the bustling promenade, Zenera Vox observed the human soldier with undisguised interest. Her luminous violet skin contrasted with her silver hair that cascaded down her shoulders like liquid mercury. The intricate markings around her large amethyst eyes shimmered as she tilted her head, studying her target. "That's him?" asked Lorne, her personal security officer. "That's him," Zenera confirmed, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She adjusted her form-fitting indigo jacket and the high-collared tunic that accentuated her elegant figure. The circlet around her neck, a symbol of her status in the Astron high houses, gleamed under the station's lights. "He's quite formidable for a human," Lorne observed cautiously. "Perfect," Zenera said, her voice like velvet. "Strong, independent, and completely unconnected to any of the houses." She twisted the ancient ring on her finger, a delicate band set with a crystal that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. "Father wants me to marry that simpering politician from House Terravon. Let's see how he feels when I've claimed a human instead." Lorne shifted uncomfortably. "My lady, the binding ritual is sacred. Using it as a political maneuver is exactly what my family has been doing for generations," she cut him off. "The difference is, this time I choose the pawn." Her eyes narrowed. "And I choose him." Jace felt a prickling sensation at the base of his skull, the same feeling that had saved his life countless times on the battlefield. Someone was watching him. He scanned the crowd with practiced precision until his eyes locked with Zenara's across the promenade. For a moment, he was transfixed by those alien eyes, deep, intelligent, and filled with something he couldn't quite place. Purpose? Hunger? Before he could decide, she smiled and began moving toward him, weaving through the crowd with practiced grace. "Commander Jace Reynolds," she said as she approached, her voice melodic with an accent he couldn't place. "Or should I say soon-to-be-retired Commander Reynolds?" Jace's hand instinctively moved closer to his sidearm. "Do I know you?" "Not yet," she replied, extending a slender violet hand. "Zenera Vox, House of Celestial Light, and I've been looking for someone exactly like you." "Not interested," Jace replied flatly, turning away. Zenara's laugh was like crystal chimes. "Oh, but you haven't heard my proposition yet. Lady, I've spent 5 years fighting off Tauran marauders who wanted to skin me alive. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. Not even passage on a private vessel." Zenera raised an eyebrow. "One that could get you back to Earth in 3 days instead of the 3 weeks your military transport will take." That gave Jace pause. 3 weeks on a cramped military transport versus 3 days on what was undoubtedly a luxury vessel. Still, he knew better than to trust a stranger, especially one as alluring as this violet-skinned woman. "What's the catch?" he asked warily. "Just dinner," Zenera said innocently. "On my private dock. We talk, we eat, and if you're still not interested in my broader proposition, you get your fast ride home anyway." Jace studied her face, trying to read her intentions. Years of combat had made him good at spotting lies, but Zanara's expression revealed nothing but confidence. "Just dinner," he repeated skeptically. "Just dinner," she confirmed with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Against his better judgment, Jace nodded. "Lead the way." As they walked toward the private docking bays, neither noticed the shadowy figure watching from a recessed alcove, speaking quietly into a communicator. "Confirm visual on Lady Vox. She's made contact with the human. Inform the Patriarch." The private dock was a stark contrast to the bustling main station, quiet, dimly lit, and luxuriously appointed. A small table had been set with exotic foods and crystal glasses filled with a shimmering purple liquid. "Your security stays outside," Jace said, nodding toward Lorne. Zanara waved her hand dismissively. "Of course. This is a private conversation, after all." As Lorne reluctantly stepped outside, Jace removed his armored gauntlets but kept the rest of his protective gear on. "Old habits die hard." "So," Jace said as they sat at the table, "what's this broader proposition you mentioned?" Zanara leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Freedom, Commander Reynolds. For both of us." "I'm already free," Jace replied, though the words felt hollow even to him. 3 more years of service before his contract with the Earth Alliance was complete. 3 more years of following orders, fighting other people's wars. "Are you?" Zanara asked as if reading his thoughts. "Or are you just exchanging one cage for another?" She reached across the table, her fingers brushing against his armored forearm. "I've studied your record. 16 commendations, 5 valor medals. A man who leads from the front and brings his people home." "You've been spying on me," Jace said, his voice hardening. "I've been researching an investment," she corrected. "My family, my house, controls trade routes across 4 sectors. We have wealth, power, influence, and enemies. Lots of enemies. And what does that have to do with me?" Zanara's smile widened. "I need a partner. Someone strong. Someone unconnected to the other houses. Someone who can help me maintain my independence." Jace laughed, a short, harsh sound. "You're looking for a mercenary." "I'm looking for a consort," Zanara replied, her voice suddenly serious. Jace choked on his drink. "Lady, you're barking up the wrong tree." "I'm not." "Hear me out," she interrupted, leaning closer. "It would be a marriage of convenience. You gain access to resources you can't imagine. I gain protection from unwanted suitors and maintain control of my inheritance. After a suitable period, we could go our separate ways." Jace stood up, shaking his head. "Thanks for dinner, but I'll take my chances with the military transport." As he turned to leave, Zanara's voice took on a desperate edge. "Please, just consider it. My father is forcing me to marry a man who will use me to gain control of our house. Once he has what he wants, I'll be discarded, or worse." Jace paused, his back to her. He'd seen enough of the galaxy to know that power struggles often left casualties. "I'm sorry for your situation," he said, turning back to face her. "But I can't help you." Zanara's expression changed, desperation giving way to determination. "I was hoping you'd agree willingly, but..." She twisted the ring on her finger, and it began to glow with an eerie purple light. Jace's combat instincts kicked in. He reached for his sidearm, but his body suddenly felt heavy, unresponsive. "What did you do?" he managed to ask as his limbs grew heavier. Zanara stood and approached him, the glowing ring held before her. "The binding ritual of Astra," she explained, her voice almost apologetic. "An ancient tradition. The neural circlet establishes a connection between 2 beings, a connection recognized by all houses as unbreakable." She pressed the ring against Jace's exposed neck, and a jolt of energy surged through him. For a moment, he felt as if his consciousness had expanded, touching something alien yet familiar. Then the sensation faded, leaving behind a strange warmth at the base of his skull. There, Zenera said, stepping back to admire her work. A matching symbol now glowed faintly on both their necks, an intricate pattern that pulsed in time with their heartbeats. It's done. The paralysis faded, and Jay stumbled backward, his hand going to his neck. What the hell did you just do to me? Zenera held up her hand, showing the ring that now seemed to be fused with her finger, its crystal glowing with the same intensity as the mark on their necks. By the laws of Astra, you're my consort now. Forever. Her lips curved into a triumphant smile. You think you can leave? Where do you think you're going, my sweet human consort? Try to run, and the hunters of my house will track you down anywhere in the galaxy. Jace's face darkened with fury. You've made a serious mistake. Perhaps, Zenera admitted, her smile faltering slightly. But it's done now. We're bound together, for better or worse. As the reality of his situation sank in, Jace realized he'd become a pawn in a game he didn't understand. A dangerous game of interstellar politics where the stakes were higher than he could imagine. You're insane, he growled. No, Zenera replied, her voice suddenly hard. I'm desperate. And now, so are you. The station's alert system suddenly blared to life, bathing the dock in pulsing red light. What now? Jace demanded. Zenara's eyes widened. My father. He must have been tracking me. She grabbed Jace's arm. We need to leave. Now. If he finds us, he'll have the binding severed, and that will likely kill us both. Convenient, Jace muttered, but he was already moving toward the exit, military training taking over. Which way to your ship? Follow me, Zenera said, leading him through a side corridor. And Jace? You tried to run, human. Now you're mine until the stars burn out. As they raced through the station, the warmth at the base of Jace's skull intensified, and he felt something impossible, a flicker of Zenara's emotions bleeding into his mind. Their new reality was just beginning. Fugitives among the stars. The dilapidated space station Helios Prime hung like a tarnished jewel against the backdrop of a binary star system. Unlike the gleaming efficiency of Orion Station, this frontier outpost was a patchwork of mismatched modules, unauthorized additions, and questionable repairs, a place where questions weren't asked and credits bought silence. Commander Jace Reynolds, now just Jace, having abandoned his military identity, leaned against the viewport of their rented quarters, watching the constant flow of smugglers' vessels through the docking bays. His hand absently went to the mark on his neck, which pulsed with a faint purple glow beneath the high collar of his jacket. We've been here 3 days, he said without turning. How long until they find us? Zenera Vox looked up from the array of holographic displays she'd been monitoring. In the 2 weeks since their escape from Orion Station, she'd traded her elegant attire for practical clothing, a fitted jumpsuit with multiple pockets and reinforced panels. Her silver hair was pulled back in a tight braid, though it did nothing to diminish her exotic beauty. My father's agents are methodical, she replied. They'll check the major transit hubs first, then work their way outward to places like this. She gestured to the screens. I've been monitoring transmissions. No mention of us yet. Jace turned to face her, feeling a flicker of her concern through their bond. The neural connection had strengthened daily, evolving from vague emotional impressions to something more profound. He found himself increasingly able to sense her thoughts, just as she could sense his. You're worried about more than just your father's agents, he stated. Zenara's lips curved into a slight smile. The bond is making you perceptive. The bond is a violation, Jace corrected, though with less heat than when they'd first escaped. But yes, I can feel your unease. What aren't you telling me? She sighed and switched off the displays with a wave of her hand. The binding ritual, it's progressing faster than normal. By now, most newly bound pairs would barely sense surface emotions. But we're already sharing thoughts, impressions. And that's bad because it suggests a rate of neural synchronization that's unprecedented. Zenera stood and moved closer to him. In Astran tradition, such rapid bonding is considered significant. Jace felt a ripple of something through their connection, embarrassment mixed with a deeper emotion he couldn't quite identify. Significant how? He pressed. It's said that souls who recognize each other across the void will bind more quickly, she explained, not meeting his eyes. An old superstition. You don't strike me as the superstitious type, Jace observed dryly. Before she could respond, their conversation was interrupted by 3 sharp knocks on the door. Instantly, Jace moved into a defensive position, drawing the pulse pistol he'd acquired shortly after their escape. Zenera likewise produced a small energy weapon from a hidden pocket. Through their bond, they coordinated without words, Jace positioning himself to cover the entrance while Zenera moved to the control panel beside the door. "Who is it?" she called. "Delivery," came a gravelly voice. "Package from Orion." The two exchanged glances, alarm pulsing through their connection. They'd used no names when renting these quarters, mentioned no connection to Orion Station. "We didn't order anything," Zenera replied cautiously. A pause, then, "The package is marked for the bound ones. Says it's from someone called Lorne." Zenara's eyes widened. "Lorne? My security officer?" Jace frowned. "Could be a trap. Or he could be trying to help us," she countered. "He was loyal to me, not my father." After a moment of silent communication through their bond, Jace's suspicion balanced against Zenara's cautious hope, they agreed on a course of action. "Leave it outside," Jace called. "Walk away, and we'll retrieve it." "As you wish," the voice replied. Heavy footsteps receded down the corridor. They waited 5 minutes, Jace extending his senses through the bond, combining his military training with their shared enhanced perception to scan for threats beyond the door. Finally satisfied it wasn't an immediate trap, he nodded to Zenera. She pressed a sequence on the panel, and the door slid open just enough for Jace to see a small metallic case resting on the floor outside. Using the edge of his jacket, he retrieved it without touching it directly and brought it inside. "Could be a tracker," he warned. "Or worse." Zenera produced a small device from her pocket and waved it over the case. "No active electronics, no explosive compounds." She hesitated. "Though there are trace energy signatures I don't recognize." Jace set the case on a table and carefully opened it. Inside lay 2 items, a data crystal and what appeared to be an ancient manuscript bound in some kind of iridescent material. "That's a chronicle of Astra," Zenera breathed, reaching for the book with reverent hands. "These are incredibly rare, each house maintains only 1 copy." "And the data crystal?" Jace asked, picking it up carefully. "Only one way to find out." Zenera inserted it into a secure reader she carried, designed to prevent any malicious code from spreading to connected systems. Lorne's face appeared in a flickering hologram above the reader. The security officer looked haggard, his features tight with strain. "Lady Zenera, if you're seeing this, then my contacts managed to find you. I don't have much time. Your father has placed a bounty on both your heads, dead or alive. The binding priest he brought to Orion has been dispatched with a team of house hunters to track the neural signature of your bond." Zenara's hand went unconsciously to the mark on her neck. "I've included a copy of the ancient texts on binding rituals," Lorne continued. "There may be information there that can help you. The official histories your father promotes contain omissions. Dangerous ones." He glanced over his shoulder nervously. "I must go. Trust no one from the houses. Your father has allies everywhere." The message ended abruptly. Silence fell between them as they absorbed the implications. "House hunters," Jace finally said. "You mentioned them before. Elite trackers?" "Worse," Zenera replied, her voice tight. "They're specially bred and augmented for one purpose, to find and retrieve house assets. They can sense a binding from halfway across a star system." "And the binding priest?" Zenara's fear flowed through their connection like ice water. To perform the severance ritual. It's barbaric. The priest uses a special blade that severs the neural connection forcibly. Few survive the process with their minds intact. Jace absorbed this information with grim determination. Then we need to keep moving. This station is too exposed. Wait, Zenera said, her fingers already turning the pages of the chronicle. Lorne risked everything to get this to us. There must be something important here. As she searched the ancient text, Jace moved to the viewport again, scanning the docking bays with new wariness. The bond between them hummed with shared tension, and he found himself increasingly aware of Zenara's presence in his mind, not an intrusion now, but a comforting certainty. Despite their inauspicious beginning, something had changed between them during their time on the run. Jace, Zenara called suddenly, her voice thick with emotion. I found something. He turned to find her staring at the chronicle, her violet skin paler than usual. What is it? The complete binding ritual, she whispered. Not the version the houses use, the original form, from before the Great Divergence. She looked up, her amethyst eyes wide. The neural circlet wasn't created as a means of control. It was designed as a gift between equals, a sharing of strength and ability. Jace moved to her side, looking down at the unfamiliar script. What are you saying? I'm saying the bond between us isn't just a connection, it's a conduit. In its complete form, it allows for the sharing of more than just thoughts and feelings. Skills, abilities, even physical attributes can be exchanged. Her fingers traced the ancient symbols. And there's more. A fully realized bond can't be severed by external means. It becomes self-sustaining, independent of the circlet that created it. Jace felt a surge of hope through their connection. So if we can complete the ritual, then my father's binding priest can't touch us, she finished. We'd be truly free. The moment was interrupted by a distant explosion that shook the station. Emergency alarms began to wail throughout the complex. Jace was already moving, gathering their essential gear. That's no coincidence. Zenera nodded, carefully stowing the chronicle in her pack. They found us. They moved with practiced efficiency, having prepared for this moment since their arrival. Within minutes, they were ready to leave, heading for the secondary evacuation routes rather than the main corridors. The ritual, Jace said as they moved. What does it require to complete it? According to the chronicle, mutual acceptance and a moment of true synchronization, Zenera replied. Both parties must fully embrace the bond without reservation. Jace cast her a sideways glance. That could be a problem, considering how our relationship started. A wry smile touched her lips. Are you still angry with me, Commander Reynolds? The question gave him pause. Was he? The initial violation of the forced binding had been unforgivable. Yet during their time together, running from her father's forces, something had shifted between them. The bond had become less a chain and more a bridge, connecting two souls who, against all odds, complemented each other perfectly. I'm working on it, he finally said as they reached a maintenance junction. Ask me again when we're not running for our lives. They emerged onto a lower level of the station, a grimy corridor lined with storage units and forgotten cargo. Jace took point, his military training combining with their shared enhanced perception to scout for threats. 3 life signs ahead, he murmured. Moving in formation. Professional. Hunters, Zenera confirmed, sensing the same through their bond. They ducked into an alcove as 3 figures in sleek combat suits moved past, their movements precise and predatory. Each carried specialized weapons and scanning equipment. Once the hunters had passed, Jace and Zenera continued toward the auxiliary docking bays where they'd secured a small scout ship, nondescript, fast, and equipped with modified stealth systems. They were within sight of the bay when Zenera suddenly gasped, doubling over in pain. What is it? Jace asked, supporting her weight. The binding priest, she managed through clenched teeth. He's on the station. I can feel him, he's attempting to disrupt our bond remotely. Jace reached for her hand, and the moment their skin touched, the bond between them flared like a supernova. The mark on his neck burned with fierce intensity, but instead of pain, he felt power surging through the connection, Zanara's strength flowing into him even as his resilience flowed into her. The Chronicle was right, she gasped. The bond is evolving, protecting itself. Can you move? He asked, feeling her pain recede through their connection. She nodded, straightening. Yes, but the priest knows exactly where we are now. That surge would have been impossible to miss. They sprinted the remaining distance to the docking bay, alarm klaxons still blaring throughout the station. As they reached the airlock to their vessel, Jace felt a chill run down his spine. They're coming, he said, sensing multiple threats converging on their position. Zanara worked quickly to unlock the airlock, her fingers dancing across the control panel. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss just as the first energy blast struck the wall beside them. Go! Jace shouted, pushing her through before turning to return fire. 3 hunters had entered the bay, moving with inhuman coordination as they spread out to flank their position. Behind them came a robed figure, the binding priest, his face obscured by an ornate mask, a ceremonial blade gleaming in his hand. Jace fired several shots, forcing the hunters to take cover, then backed into the airlock. The door began to close, but not before the priest raised his hand. A pulse of energy struck the closing door, momentarily jamming it. Zanara, we need to launch now. Jace called. The docking clamps are still engaged, she replied from the pilot's seat. Working on it. The hunters were advancing again, using the cover of cargo containers to approach the half-closed airlock. Jace fired steadily, keeping them at bay, but he knew it was only a matter of time before they overwhelmed his position. The priest stepped forward, raising his ceremonial blade, which began to glow with the same purple energy as their binding marks. Even from a distance, Jace could feel its pull on their connection, like hooks trying to tear something precious from his mind. Jace! Zanara's voice called through their bond rather than aloud. The ritual, we need to complete it now. Little busy here, he replied, ducking as an energy blast nearly took his head off. Focus on me, she urged. Not the fight. Me. Despite the chaos around him, Jace closed his eyes for a fractional second, reaching through their bond toward Zanara. Immediately, he felt her presence, warm, determined, and surprisingly vulnerable. I choose you, her thoughts whispered in his mind. Not as a pawn, not as a shield. I choose you as my equal, my partner. The sincerity behind the words resonated through their connection. In that moment, Jace realized the truth. Somewhere between Orion Station and this grimy docking bay, he had begun to care for this alien woman. Not because of the bond, but because of who she was, brave, resourceful, and fighting for her freedom against impossible odds. Just like him. I choose you too, he responded, the thought forming with crystalline clarity. Not as my captor. As my partner. The binding marks on their necks flared with blinding light. The priest screamed, reeling backward as if struck by a physical blow. The neural connection between Jace and Zanara expanded exponentially, becoming something new, a perfect synthesis of their strengths, abilities, and consciousness. The docking clamps are free. Zanara called, her voice now echoing both in his ears and in his mind. Jace fired one final volley at the stunned hunters, then hit the emergency override for the airlock. The door slammed shut just as the ship's engines roared to life. He made his way to the cockpit, where Zanara piloted with preternatural skill, guiding the vessel away from the station at maximum acceleration. Through their completed bond, Jace could feel her accessing his combat pilot training, using his muscle memories as if they were her own. They'll follow, he said, taking the co-pilot's seat. Let them try, Zanara replied with fierce confidence. The bond is complete now, did you feel it? Jace nodded. The mark on his neck no longer pulsed, instead, it glowed with a steady, comforting warmth. He could sense Zanara's presence in his mind with perfect clarity, not an intrusion but a complement to his own consciousness. "What happens now?" he asked as their ship accelerated toward the jump point. Zenera turned to him, her amethyst eyes bright with a mixture of relief and something deeper, something that resonated through their bond with unmistakable clarity. "Now," she said, reaching for his hand, "we rewrite the stars, Commander Reynolds. Together." As their fingers intertwined, the completed bond hummed between them, no longer a chain but a bridge spanning the void between two souls who had found each other against all odds. "Together," Jace agreed, and for the first time since their fateful meeting, he smiled without reservation. Behind them, Helios Prime receded into the distance as they charted a course for the unexplored territories beyond House influence, two fugitives bound not just by ancient ritual, but by choice. The end.